Hello everyone, I'm Freaky and welcome to the video. My friends, how many of you are sick and tired of seeing the same characters that are always the same age? Specifically, kids in schools or colleges. When it comes to cartoons or anime or claymation or stuff like that. Because I certainly am. I am so sick and tired of cartoons and anime always giving us the same goddamn thing every single time. Teenagers trying to figure themselves out, teenagers falling in love, teenagers in comedies, and not just teenagers but kids as well. Like the famous Ash Ketchum, who's the eternal 10-year-old. I'm telling you guys, I am sick and tired of teenagers or kids being the main protagonist of all these stories in anime, cartoons, games, comic books, etc, etc. Now listen, I know what some people out there are going to say. They're going to say, oh but Freaky, all these cartoons and games and anime and comic books, etc, etc are all meant for kids. That's what anime, cartoons and comic books and so on have always been. All those things were always meant for teenagers to kids. So it makes perfect sense for teenage characters and kids to be the same age as their audience, so they can relate to them. Yeah, I know what some of you are thinking, and you're absolutely right. All these medias today always try to make teenagers or kids as protagonists when it comes to all these medias, so teenagers and kids can relate to the main characters. But here's the thing, it wasn't always like this, because back in the day, when it came to cartoons and claymation and anime and all that stuff, there was grown-up characters in cartoons, anime and all these games as well. But you rarely see them these days, you know, grown adults as main protagonists. And you know what, there's nothing wrong with that. But these days, companies always try to have the main protagonist as teenagers or kids, or they're in colleges or they're in schools. And that's all I've ever seen these days. And yes, don't get me wrong, there was kids and teenagers back in the day, like something in the 90s, 80s, early 2000s, or the 70s. There was characters of teenagers or kids that looked like they could be adults, and you wouldn't know unless somebody told you that they were kids or teenagers. Like for example, Gundam Wing. If somebody didn't tell me that these were teenagers or kids that was flying these giant robots, then I would have mistaken them for adults. Because back in the day, kids or teenagers was either mature or they looked like adults. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because also back in the day, we also had main protagonists as adults, like Postman Pat or Bob the Builder or Fireman Sam. There was Thunderbirds, there was Captain Scarlet, there was Goofy, and I'm talking about the 60s Goofy, where he was the everyman. There was the Ghostbusters, the 80s, 90s one, you know, the cartoon. There was the Power Rangers. I mean, yeah, technically they were teenagers, but they were also coming into their adulthood, so they were old enough to be adults. There was G.I. Joe. There was Action Man. Yeah, there was a doll back in the day called Action Man. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I have this theory that the reason why they made heroes adults back in the day, or helpful characters as adults back in the day, is so if kids was to watch something like Bob the Builder or Postman Pat or Fireman Sam, I think it would give kids more inspiration to say, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be like Bob the Builder. I want to build stuff. Or I want to grow up to be a fireman. Or I want to be a postman like Postman Pat. Or when it came to characters like G.I. Joe or Action Man, kids will get into their minds saying, when I grow up, I want to be just like this guy, G.I. Joe or Action Man. Because when you look at those guys, they are very masculine and very strong adults, and they're facing off against all these bad guys in order to protect their country, their loved ones, you know, that sort of stuff. And if you ask me, I think that's a brilliant idea to have adult characters, you know, positive adult characters that kids can look up to. And when they do have these positive adult role models like Fireman Sam or Bob the Builder or Postman Pat, over time they could get into their head saying that, you know what, I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a builder, or I want to be a postman. Or if they was to look at something like G.I. Joe, they could say, you know what, I want to join the army to protect my country and protect my loved ones and make my country proud. And you know what, I think this is what kids are missing. Main character adult role models like Fireman Sam or Bob the Builder or Postman Pat or G.I. Joe. So yeah, I'm going to come out and say it. That is what's missing in kids' lives. An adult role model for them to think, you know what, I want to be just like Fireman Sam. I want to be a fireman. You know, stuff like that. You know, back in the day when people said, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be just like this adult character. I want to be a fireman. And that's the sort of thing that kids don't have these days. They don't have the inspiration of becoming better adults when they grow up. I mean, think about it. When was the last time you ever saw an adult main protagonist that was a good influence on kids to inspire them to be something great as adults? You barely do, don't you? But these days, and including the 90s, all the way up to now, you rarely see anything like that these days. It's always got to be teenagers and kids. Like again, Pokemon with Ash Ketchum. I mean, there are loads of anime that have teenagers and kids in schools, all because kids can relate to them. And this is the reason why they have kids as main protagonists in all these movies and series and so on and so on. Now, let me ask you guys something. Let's just say, for example, that you was a fan of Pokemon back in the day, and you was most likely roughly around 8 years old to 12 years old, 15 maybe, and you watched Pokemon from the first episode to the last episode of that region, like maybe the first 150 Pokemon. Let me ask you guys something. What inspired you from Pokemon to make you say, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be just like this character when I grow up? Who's the role model in Pokemon? It's Ash Ketchum, and he's 10 years old. There's none of that, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be just like so-and-so in Pokemon. When you look at something like Pokemon, it's just there to sell toys. I mean, considering how Pokemon says, oh, you gotta catch 'em all. Catch 'em, gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon. And that's just basically it. Pokemon is just there to sell you toys and games and models, etc, etc. I mean, back in the day, when you watched Pokemon, what was going through your mind as a kid when you was watching that show? When a new Pokemon came onto the screen, you would probably thinking, you know what, I want to capture that Pokemon on my Game Boy, on my Pokemon Red or Blue or Pikachu game, or I want to collect the card of that Pokemon. And you know what, that was basically it. The Pokemon series is just there to sell toys. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. Back in the day, it was fun trying to collect the card, trying to capture the Pokemon in the games. It was all in good fun. And yes, before anybody says anything, yes, I understand. There was more than just trying to catch them all. There were some really good lessons within Pokemon, like the power of friendship, loyalty, the friends we make along the way, etc, etc, etc. Those sort of lessons, which I'm completely for. In fact, there are some great lessons within Pokemon like that. And not just in Pokemon, but in most teenagers and kids' TV shows, like being a good friend and being a good person, being the bigger man, and teaching teenagers about young love and teaching them the harshness of reality. You know, when you have to turn down a boy or a girl who likes you, you know, that sort of thing. That is all well and good. I have no problem with that sort of thing for these teenage and kid shows that has teenage protagonist or kid protagonists learning all these lessons about life, about friendship, and all these good things. And you know what? That's one of the things that anime cartoons like that with teenagers and kids and teaching them about friendship and all that stuff. That is one of the good things about these sort of shows with kid protagonists. I mean, that's all well and good, teaching kids about these sort of things that's going to be happening in their life of being a kid and a teenager. But where's the inspiration of them having adult role models? And listen, I can understand that when it comes to characters, you know, learning lessons and coming to understandings, I can totally understand where those sort of things are coming from. You know, be open-minded, be more accepting, the power of friendship, no matter where we are in the world, we'll always be friends. You know, those sort of lessons. Again, I can totally get behind that. You know, all those lessons I was talking about, and the lessons that these young characters are going through that age. And when you're a kid or a teenager, you can relate to those characters because you're probably going through the same thing as what those characters are going through. Again, I have no problem with that, but they're not really role models. I mean, maybe around that age, you can take a few pages out of their book and learn from them. But again, what about role model adults and their professions? And no, DC and Marvel doesn't count. I mean, yeah, when it comes to Batman and Superman and the Avengers and the Justice League, all those guys have their own stories, their own problems, their own dilemmas. Yes, I understand. Seeing all these heroes fighting the bad guys, helping people. I mean, we all know that Superman is the Boy Scout. Never does anything wrong, depending on which Superman you're talking about. But let's just go with Justice League Superman. Yeah, when it comes to Superman, again, he's the Boy Scout. He doesn't do any wrong, and he always tries to do the right thing. And Superman is great. This Superman has core values that we can all get behind. Superman has the powers of a god, and he doesn't try to use his overwhelming power to force people to get what he wants. And no, I'm not talking about Justice Lord Superman or the Injustice timeline. When you look at Superman, you could look at Superman as, with great power comes great responsibility. And yes, I know that's Spider-Man saying, but when you have so much power like Superman, you could look at yourself one day and, just for example, like maybe you're the owner of a big massive company, or maybe you won the lottery and won millions of pounds or dollars, or you're in a position of power. Maybe you're the Prime Minister or the President or the leader of a country, and whatever you say goes. But when you look at Superman, he has all that power and he doesn't abuse it. So if you had like a big business, or you got millions and millions, or you're the Prime Minister or the leader of a country, or in a position of power, you can take away Superman's lessons of don't abuse your power and do the right thing. It's the same with Batman, Wonder Woman, the Green Lantern. All these heroes, they have the power to change the world because they are in a position of power. So if you're in a position of power, always try and do the right thing. You know, something like that. Again, all these heroes have their own problems, their own dilemmas, and their own lessons to teach. You know, the power of teamwork, the power of trust, redemption, changing for the better, sacrifice, and all that stuff as heroes. But what about their normal lives? We never see Bruce Wayne at work, nor do we see him do things at work. I mean, what does he do exactly? I mean, what does his company actually do anyways? Anyways, moving on. And yes, you've got Clark Kent that works as a reporter. You have Spider-Man as a photographer for his job at some sort of newspaper company. I can't remember what it was called. And all these heroes all have jobs outside of being a hero. But the thing is, when it comes to heroes with powers, they make their jobs very easy. They've got super speed, superhuman strength, and they can do all these tricks with their powers. When it comes to their day jobs are easy to them because they have advantages that regular humans don't have. I mean, in the movie The Death of Superman, when Clark tells Lois that he is Superman and Lois believes him, and she goes on talking about how really good at his job he was and saying that he was always there on site to get the story. And she goes on saying that, oh, he never takes vacations or holidays, he never sweats, and he never tans. And that's the thing. Every human does this. We do tan, we do sweat, and we do get tired, and we need to go on holiday sometimes, just to get away from it all. And sometimes we're not going to do our jobs perfectly, or near enough perfect. So really, when it comes to our everyday life, you really can't relate to Superman or these other heroes in that way, because we don't have their powers that'll make life easier for us, just like with Superman being a reporter and having his powers helping him out. You can't really relate to that. Again, sure, you can relate to these heroes in certain lessons, and they can inspire you to do the right thing. Again, great power comes great responsibility, but on a human level, you can't really relate to them. And yes, I know there's superheroes that are human like Batman, but Batman is a billionaire, he's super smart, and all this other stuff that he's got that helps him fight criminals. And listen, I'm not knocking all these heroes. I promise you guys that. All these heroes are there to inspire you to do the right thing. And you know what? That's awesome. Oh, and there's also the drama as well. Characters with special powers can be inspiring sometimes, but on a more realistic sense, you can't really relate to them. But you can relate to adult human characters with no special powers other than their own strength, which is relatable to normal people. Because when you look at someone like Fireman Sam, Postman Pat, or G.I. Joe, their professions are realistic, and anybody can do them. Now, when you're a little kid, like a little kid, and you're dressed up as Superman, and your parents come to you and ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? That kid will most likely say, I want to be a superhero, I want to be Superman, which would be completely impossible. But if they was to watch something like Postman Pat, or Fireman Sam, or G.I. Joe, or Bob the Builder, and they absolutely love these cartoons, your kids might say, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be a postman, or, oh, I want to be a fireman, or, oh, I want to join the army like G.I. Joe, or, oh, I want to be a builder. And none of these guys have special powers, because all these characters are the average Joe. They do make mistakes. They do have to use their own power. Not everything is going to be perfect. But let me ask you guys something. If you was to watch something like Cartoon Network, or whatever sort of channel kids watch these days, you're going to have something like Teen Titans Go, or Tom and Jerry, or Adventure Time, or something like that. They're not very realistic, and most cartoons these days don't have a positive adult character for the kids to look up to. That is the average Joe with no powers. Like, when was the last time you saw a human adult with no powers role model that was something like Fireman Sam, that put out fires and puts himself in danger to protect people? When was the last time you saw anything like Bob the Builder that goes around fixing things and building things? When was the last time you saw anything like G.I. Joe that is sort of an army guy? I haven't seen G.I. Joe, but him and his team have this sort of like army thing going on, and they're trying to beat the terrorists, and the Joes are just regular humans fighting off against the evils of Cobra, which I think are snake men or they're aliens or something. I don't know, I haven't watched these series. But hey, that's inspiring. Regular humans facing off against terrorists that so happens to be snakes, I think. So yeah, even though the Joes are just regular humans and they're facing off against these snakes that have all these powers and highly advanced technology, they still go in and kick their ass. To me, that's inspiring. Now, let's have a look at Goku from Dragon Ball Z. Now, when it comes to Goku, in some ways, you can't really relate to Goku because he's a Saiyan, he's not human, and he can do all these impossible feats that no regular human can do. Like, he can go Super Saiyan, and if he had a tail, he can go into his Zoro form. And the idea of Ki being used like it is in the show, you know, with the Kamehameha, the Destructo Disc, and the Kikaho. I mean, yeah, that's all make-believe, and getting all these power-ups are all fantasy. But there is one way that you can relate to Goku, and that is when he's training hard and giving it his best to fight the bad guys. Even when he's hurting and it looks like he's almost down for the count, he still gets back up and never gives up. Well, besides from that time when Goku gave up to Cell. But hey, Goku had a plan for that. I mean, when you look at Goku in the first half of Dragon Ball, you see him run on Snake Way to get to King Kai's planet, and he trains on King Kai's planet with 10 times the gravity, trying to capture Bubbles and capture Gregory. I mean, yeah, the gravity change would destroy your insides. You know, your organs, because your organs don't have the muscle to withstand gravity. In fact, no human can actually do what Goku has done. But saying that, when you look at him trying to get himself better and trying to get faster and stronger on King Kai's planet, and he tries with all his might to fight Vegeta, and he trains on his way to Namek with that gravity machine thing, and he fights against Frieza, and he uses the Koken that almost destroys his body, and even when he's hurting, he still doesn't give up. He tries his absolute damnedest to come through in the end and overcome his obstacles, either through training or beating his opponents. And you know what? That's inspiring. That's telling people, or inspiring people to never give up and continue, even if it's difficult. So in that way, Goku is a good influence. But in Super, they made him a clown. They made him look lazy, and Goku doesn't hold down a job. Well, technically he's a farmer, but you know what? He's self-employed like that. The thing is, when it came to Dragon Ball Z, Goku looked more mature, sure of himself, he had a plan. But in Super, they make him more almost like a child. And I think I know the reason why they did this. It's because they wanted Goku to be more relatable to the younger crowd. Like, they wanted him to be silly, more funny, and make him act like he doesn't know what certain things are. I mean, look at the Dragon Ball superhero movie. When Vegeta was meditating, Goku says, "Shouldn't you be training to get stronger?" But Vegeta debunked him, saying something like, "Oh, meditation is training," or something like that. But come on, we've seen Goku meditate before. Hell, even in the filler with Goku and Gohan in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, Goku says that their muscles need to rest once in a while so they can grow. And you know what? This is the Goku that I know and love. But they made Goku a dumbass in Super, all because they wanted a young audience to attach itself to Goku. And listen, I can understand that, because when it comes to kids, they don't know anything about the world, they can't really relate to adults. But again, adults can be an inspiration to kids. Again, like Fireman Sam, Bob the Builder, that sort of stuff. Now, when it came to the Dragon Ball series, kids could latch onto Goku because they was roughly the same age as Goku. And Goku was naive about absolutely everything. He didn't know anything about girls. He didn't know anything about the world. He didn't know how things work. And you know what? You can't get any more innocent and naive as Goku when he was in Dragon Ball. And when Goku learns about all these lessons, as a kid, you learn alongside Goku about all these things in his world. And Goku learns more about himself. Goku learns how things work. Goku matures over time during the series. Hell, I'm pretty sure that everybody prefers GT Goku when it comes to his maturity than they do in Super, especially in Super Saiyan 4. I mean, yeah, he can be a bit of a goofball there and there, but yeah, I'm getting off track. And when it came to Z, young kids can get behind Gohan. And when it came to Gohan, he was nothing like his dad when he was a kid. He's scared of everything, he doesn't know his own power, he doesn't like fighting like his dad. He is completely different to his father. And that's what Gohan was supposed to be. He was supposed to be the next generation of Dragon Ball. And Goku was the mature adult. Well, more or less. And at the very least, Goku knew what he had to do. And when it came to Gohan, he didn't voluntarily or eagerly say that he wants to get stronger, he wants to train, that he wants to fight stronger people. Gohan didn't want any of this. He was just chucked into this dangerous world that he never asked for, all because he was powerful and everybody needed his help. And you know what? If it was left up to Gohan, if there was no aliens or monsters or bad guys, I'm pretty sure that he would want a normal life. He wouldn't want any of his powers. He would want to be a normal human, living his life with his wife, Videl. And we've seen this over the series. But each time Gohan has been asked, he was chucked in, he was angry. But again, if it was left up to Gohan, he would just have a happy, normal life. And he's not into fighting, but he'll fight in order to protect his friends, his family, and his home. But saying that, over time, when we see Gohan, we think, oh, he's going to be just like his dad. But later on, we learn that Gohan doesn't want any of that. He doesn't like fighting. He doesn't like hurting people. He isn't like his dad. And again, Gohan was chucked into this dangerous world of fighting. But even after all the stuff that he's been through, Gohan comes through in the end and tries to help his friends. So even though he doesn't want any of this, Gohan will put himself on the line in order to do the right thing, even if he doesn't like it. And you know what? That's a great lesson. Even though you don't want to do it, you still got to do what you have to do in order to protect the ones you love. Anyways, I'm getting off track. I want to get back to my main argument about how there's too many kids and teenagers in media without or rarely seeing adults. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that, but it would be nice just to have adults as main protagonists. And you know what? I can name you a fair few anime that has adults for protagonists that actually acts like adults. There's Spike from Cowboy Bebop, there's Dr. Tenma, and a fair few other characters from the series Monster. There's Moribito, there's Basilisk, there's Bubblegum Crash, there's Baccano, there's Tiger and Bunny, there's Kentaro, there's the Count of Monte Cristo, there's Garden of Sinners, there's Paranoia Agent, there's Spice and Wolf, there's Space Dandy, there's Perfect Blue, there's Ghost in the Shell, there's GTO, Great Teacher Inuzuka. There are loads and loads of anime that has adults in them, and all those shows was really, really good. And that's not to say that I don't want any kid characters in any anime with adults, because there are some really good kid characters that goes alongside adults. There's the kid from Moribito, there's Ed from Cowboy Bebop, there's Dieter from Monster. There was a few kids from Paranoia Agent. I think there's Rin from Fate Zero. Yeah, I know I can't remember all of them, but there are some really, really good anime out there. So yeah, I'm not bashing kids or teenagers, and I'm not saying that, oh, we should get rid of all the kids and all the teenagers within anime and just make them only adults. All I'm saying is that anime fans who are adults should also get adult characters within medium as well. Because again, these days it's always about kids and teenagers. I mean, you guys do realise that there are more age ranges other than kids and teenagers, you know? And yes, I know. The reason why they're targeting teenagers and kids is because that's where all the money is. Because kids are stupid. I mean, come on, we was all stupid at that age. And that's the thing. That's why kids need more adult characters as inspirations. I mean, yeah, if you're a fan of Superman when you was a kid, instead of being a superhero, you could be a reporter. Or if you're a fan of Goku and you loved how he worked out, you could open your own gym, because these guys inspired you to be a reporter or open your own gym. Now, there's another thing I want to bring up. Sometimes in shows, or the next season or the next series, that's a continuation of that series, you always get somebody new as the main protagonist. Like, for example, Batman, the animated series from 1993, or was it 1992? Anyways, when it came to Batman, he was either on his own or you had Robin. And when it came to Robin, he was supposed to kind of sort of represent the younger crowd, you know, for kids and teenagers to relate to. And you know what? I'm all for that. I mean, I find it dangerous for Batman to bring in these teenagers and these kids for crime fighting, but hey, that's a topic for another time. So yeah, Robin was there for the younger crowd to get behind, but the main protagonist was always Batman. He was always the main protagonist of his series, but there was also its sequel, Batman of the Future, or Batman Beyond. Now, they made Batman retire, and this takes place far, far into the future, and the new Batman is a high schooler whose name is Terry McGinnis. And don't get me wrong, Batman Beyond is, or can be, a very dark show. So basically, Batman Beyond was for teenagers, so it was perfect. So really, teenagers could get behind Terry, and he was the new Batman. And you know what? I didn't mind this, because Batman isn't going to live forever, but he is a mentor type to Terry. Like, Terry is the new generation of Batman, and it's up to Bruce to teach him the ways of Batman, training him, educating him. And you know what? I don't mind that. In fact, this is more preferable than just kids just taking over the older generation without no guidance to show them the ropes of what it means to be a hero. Let's have a look at another one. Let's have a look at Ghostbusters. And I'm talking about the movies and the series. But there's one thing I want to bring up first, and that is Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, I just want to say one thing. I haven't seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, but I have seen what's in this movie, and you want to know what? I found it absolutely ridiculous that you have these kids going around town trying to capture ghosts, and they're driving around in Ecto 1, and they have this very, very dangerous technology. I mean, one pack has the power of a nuke, and these kids are shooting this thing all over the place without any guidance. I just find it absolutely ridiculous that kids has this dangerous technology without any parental guidance. I mean, even if parental guidance was around and the parents was watching them, I find it ridiculous that these kids was messing around with this dangerous technology that could wipe off a county right off the map. I mean, hello? Crossing the streams much? I mean, they shouldn't even be allowed to be even using the packs, and they shouldn't be going into battle against these ghosts. They're just freaking kids with dangerous technology that they don't understand, and they don't understand the dangers that they're in when it comes to fighting these ghosts. So yeah, let's carry on. When it came to the original Ghostbusters, the movie in the series, you had adults, which was Egon, Ray, Winston, and Peter. These guys actually created all this dangerous stuff, and they're adults. They can handle themselves. They have experience dealing with all this dangerous technology and fighting ghosts. And when it came to the Ghostbusters, even though they were facing off against demons and ghosts and all this end of the world stuff, or going through things that could get them killed, it was admirable that they faced all this spooky stuff and putting themselves in danger just to trap the ghosts that's causing havoc to almost ending the world. The movies were great, the series was great. I really loved the Ghostbusters when I was younger, and like I said, I just loved how they just face off against the ghosts and try to trap them, even though it's spooky. Even if they're scared, they have to do what they have to do. That was admirable. And there was also its sequel, The Extreme Ghostbusters. And just like Batman Beyond, it too had teenagers or university students. Or was it college? Anyways, when it came to the Extreme Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters has retired, and it's only Egon and Janine and Slimer that's at the firehouse. And Egon is a professor at a university. And there's only 4 people that's ever took his class. And these guys are the new Ghostbusters. And when some spooky stuff goes on, Egon doesn't want the kids to go out ghostbusting. And then Egon gets infected and left with no choice. Egon recreates the blasters, the traps, everything for his students to go and trap this new ghost. And after that, they became the new Ghostbusters. And Egon is the new mentor of the new generation of Ghostbusters. And you know what? That is completely fine with me. It's like Batman Beyond with Terry. At the very least, he has a mentor figure with Bruce. And Egon is the mentor figure of the new Ghostbusters in Extreme Ghostbusters. And you know what? I'm completely fine with that. But sometimes, having a kid be the new generation of the previous generation can either be silly or unnecessary. Let me give you an example. There was Power Rangers Turbo, and I believe the new Blue Ranger was a little kid, and every time he morphs, he grows to the size like the other Rangers. And I'm like, dude, what the hell? You put this little kid in danger against all these monsters. I mean, yeah, Batman does that all the time, but they have a lot of training. Although saying that, he does have the power of a Power Ranger, so... Anyways, why do you think they had a kid be a Power Ranger? It was so little kids can get behind the Blue Ranger. That's another one. Now, let's have a look at Master Roshi from Dragon Ball. Now, when it came to Master Roshi was a sort of father figure to Goku. Basic education, learning things, and training. Because remember, Master Roshi is also part of the older generation, so he's going to teach Goku everything that he knows. But Master Roshi does more than that. Master Roshi always wants someone to beat Goku when it comes to tournaments and fighting all that stuff, simply because it'll give Goku more inspiration to try harder for the next time he fights someone. In fact, I think Master Roshi might be one of the best teachers out there when it comes to teaching the next generation. And again, when it comes to Goku, kids can get behind Goku in Dragon Ball. So you guys have basically got the general idea of what I'm trying to say. I'm okay with the older generation teaching the new generation. You know, Bruce with Terry, Egon with the new Ghostbusters, Master Roshi with Goku, and Piccolo with Gohan, and Goku and Oob. I'm okay with that for the older generation to teach the new generation, as long as it's done right as well. That in itself is okay, but sometimes you just want to see where the character that you've been with since he was a kid is going to do in his adult life. I mean, yeah, we've got Goku. We saw him in Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball GT. We've seen him from a kid all the way to an old man. Well, an old man kid. And you know what? That's great. We got to see Goku's story. We got to see what his kids did and his grandkids did. But mostly, it was Goku's story in Dragon Ball. But let me show you an example of what I'm trying to say. Let's have a look at Naruto. Now, we've seen Naruto from a kid all the way to the series of Boruto. Now, I've seen Boruto, and half of the characters, to me, are uninteresting, besides from Mizuki. I like him. Now the thing is, when it came to Naruto, we've been hearing him say, I want to be Hokage, I want to be Hokage. He trains himself, he trains other ninjas, he learns something about himself, he proves to people that he's a hero and he cares about the village. Like, he did all this really great stuff in Naruto, the series, and he goes on and on saying, I will be Hokage, I will be Hokage. And you know what? He achieved his dreams. He became Hokage. And then, in the next series, which was called Boruto, the story revolves around his son, Boruto. And I'm not gonna lie, it's boring. It doesn't hold a candle to Naruto. And you know what? This was a wasted opportunity. Why couldn't we have a series where we got to see Naruto as the Hokage and seeing him work as the Hokage? And you know what? They could have done so much with this, like making difficult decisions. Or maybe he could have had his own personal Anbu Black Ops that does all the dirty work. You know, stuff like that. Because being an Hokage isn't all rainbows and sunshine. You're going to make hard decisions that you don't want to do. There's grown-up stuff that I would like to see Naruto do as the Hokage. I mean, yeah, we've seen him do it when he disciplined Boruto, when he told him that he's not a ninja anymore because he cheated. But really, instead of the series being Boruto, 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 it should have been a balance between Naruto and Boruto. So that way, when Naruto does die, the transaction between Naruto and Boruto would be more smoother. We'll get to see Boruto grow up, and we get to see all the important decisions that Naruto has to do. Or, let's have a look at another series, Bleach. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this is Ichigo's story. I'm not gonna lie, I love the series Bleach, and at the end of the series, when it came to Bleach, Ichigo had a son and Rukia had a daughter, and if Bleach was to come back, I'm pretty goddamn sure that Kubo would revolve the story around Ichigo and Rukia's kid. And you know what? I don't like that. The Bleach story revolves around Ichigo, not his kids, but Ichigo himself. Because we all know that Kubo was forced to end the Bleach series. And also, he brought out a chapter that revolves around hell. And you know what? If Kubo wasn't ill, I'm pretty sure that the next chapter after the 1000 Year Blood War arc would revolve around Ichigo and Hell. But considering that he has a son now and Rukia as a daughter, something tells me if the manga does come back, I'm pretty sure that Ichigo's kid and Rukia's kid are going to be the main protagonists of the series, and Ichigo is going to take the back seat, which I'm not a big fan of, because this is Ichigo's story, not his kids. I mean, it's like these creators and these movie studios and so on think that the most important age is from a kid from 5 years old to university ages, and there's no interesting story or stories for adults. I mean, come on, there are plenty of animations and anime and cartoons that has adults, and those shows and movies are pretty good. I mean, look at The Simpsons. That series from season 1 all the way to season 7 was the best years of The Simpsons, and it revolved around the American average family. It revolved around Bart, Lisa, Homer, and Marge, and how they deal with their everyday lives. Homer's adventures were great, Marge's adventures were great, same with Bart's, same with Lisa's. It wasn't just kids. It also talked about the adults as well. There's the Flintstones. The Flintstones was sort of a family show that talked about grown-up stuff, but it was also cartoony for kids. The Flintstones was the template for The Simpsons and Family Guy. So it was basically the same, but it was more of the point of view of the adults. You know, Fred, Wilmer, Barney and Betty. And you rarely saw any kid characters. And you know what? Despite that, the Flintstones were really, really good. There was the anime Bunny Drop, where the main character has to take care of his kid aunt. And it's basically the main character being a responsible adult. There's Kentaro, who tries his best to be a good father and work hard for his son, which I highly recommend, by the way. Kentaro is a really, really good anime, and he is a positive adult role model. The thing is, I really want more books and manga, anime, cartoons, to have more serious adult stories in them. Again, like Monster. I mean, that series is fan-freaking-tastic. It's 99% adult, the tone's great. It's about this doctor who goes after a killer that he saves, and he feels that it's his responsibility to try and find this killer and kill him himself. And you know what? Adults and teenagers would love this series. It's down to earth, the characters are relatable, it's all around great. There's Moribito, where a woman is the bodyguard of this prince, and she has to protect him from his father, and they sort of have this mother-son dynamic going on. So really, if you're a kid and an adult, both kids and adults can enjoy this series too. There's Cowboy Bebop, and it's about these characters that's running away from the past, but they confront them in the end. There's Perfect Blue, Ghost in the Shell, Baccano. For me, I just wish we had more serious, adult-driven stories in all these medias, but mostly it's all about kids and teenagers. It's almost like adults aren't even given a second thought. Like, I wonder what adults would want. I wonder what sort of stories that adults would like. But nope, it's all about high schools and university kids and 10-year-olds that goes to try and capture these monsters. But no, we aren't given anything like that. But that's not to say that adults in medias can be goofy and kids and teenagers in medias can't be serious and down to earth. I mean, one of my favourite series of all time is called Trigon, and there is no kid or teenage characters within this series, and it's basically a comedy with a serious tone in the second half. So Trigon is more semi-serious, semi-light-hearted, and when it comes to serious, down-to-earth shows for kids and teenagers, there's this one series called Full Metal Alchemist 2003, and I'm telling you guys something, 2003 of Full Metal Alchemist actually talks to you like an adult. I mean, yeah, it has its silly moments at times, but 2003 actually feels that it's speaking to you instead of talking down to you, because that's what I've been seeing for years when it comes to media, because these days stories seem to be telling you how to do things, like don't do this, don't do that, this is how you're supposed to react, this is how you're supposed to behave. But there are series out there like Full Metal Alchemist 2003 that actually makes you feel like they're talking to you like an adult. There's regret, hard decisions, sacrifice, and things don't always go your way. And that's what I like about 2003. It doesn't talk down to you, but instead talks to you, if you know what I'm trying to say. And when it comes to Brotherhood, the story is almost like it's saying, oh look, and they all lived happily ever after, and everybody got everything they want in the end. I made a video some time ago talking about 2003 Full Metal Alchemist, so if you guys want to go and check that out, please do, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So yeah, there are times in media when adults in media can be goofy, like Vash from Trigon, and there's serious, down-to-earth shows that have kids and teenagers in them, like Full Metal Alchemist 2003. Now for me, I really want more anime, cartoons to have more adult stories in them. You know, adult main characters, them making difficult decisions, them being at work, them showing the hard work they do, you know, all that stuff. Because good stories don't just exist in kids or teenage ages of media, but they also exist in the ages of adults. Look at The Godfather, look at Star Wars, look at Lord of the Rings. Like, there are loads of films and series that have adults in them that are live action. And yes, I know for a fact that animation is more for kids and teenagers, but I wouldn't mind seeing more adults in animations, because there are plenty of adults in animated series and movies that are good, and they don't revolve around kids in schools or teenagers in universities or something like that. And only because it's animation doesn't mean it belongs in the realms of only kids and teenagers. And it's the same thing with live action. Only because there's live action media out there doesn't mean it's only for the realms of adults. Even kids can enjoy live action shows, and adults can enjoy animated series or comic books or something like that are serious and down to earth with a little bit of silliness in them. And listen, that's not to say that adults can't enjoy shows meant for teenagers, because I have seen CGI movies and animated movies that was meant for adults. Trust me, I have. But for me, I think they just need more variety. Or let me ask you guys something. Let's have a look at the Looney Tunes cartoons. And I'm talking about the 60s Looney Tunes with Bugs, Daffy, Elmer Fudd, Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. The thing is, those cartoons was also made for adults. I mean, the violence in some of the Looney Tunes cartoons is pretty damn violent. And you wouldn't see violence like that in a kids show these days. And the Looney Tunes shorts was really made for adults. But when I was growing up, I liked watching those Looney Tunes cartoons from the 60s. And you know what? Even kids can watch them as well. I mean, they haven't got anything sexual in them. Well, most of them don't. But the Looney Tunes does have an adult feel to them if you were to compare them to today's reincarnations. So what I'm saying is, these studios and Hollywood and all these companies need to take into consideration that adults are also watching these things as well. So Hollywood and these companies and so on should make something for both kids and adults, either separately or a combination of the two, where both age ranges can enjoy the same thing. Again, like the Looney Tunes. I just think there needs to be more positive adult role models for kids in cartoons, anime, in books, manga, you know, that sort of thing. Now, I know what some people are going to say. They're going to say, okay, Freaky, I get all that, but how do you know that this will work? That kids need adult characters as role models and somebody they can look up to. Well, let me ask you guys this. When was the last time you saw on TV, on cartoon channels, that had a positive adult role model for kids? That was the main character. Yeah, I know there's going to be some people who say, oh, well, there's this character and this character, but I'm talking about a well-known adult character. Like, back in the day, kids used to like watching Fireman Sam and Bob the Builder and Postman Pat and G.I. Joe. I mean, if you was to look at something like Family Guy, which isn't really for kids, everybody in that series is a complete asshat. They aren't good people at all whatsoever. In fact, I can't think of any positive adult role models that has no wealth, that hasn't got any superpowers, and is just a regular human being as a positive role model. And you know what? Kids are very impressionable when it comes to watching things on TV or on the internet or on their phones. I mean, let me give you an example. Some time ago on Death Battle, there was this fight between McGruff the Crime Dog versus Smokey the Bear. And Death Battle told me that it's all thanks to McGruff the Crime Dog that crime went down. I mean, this is what they said. And I think it was like the 80s or 90s, I'm not really sure, but that's what they said. So kids are impressionable. And for McGruff to give all these lessons about crime and giving kids warnings about crimes, the kids were very, very impressionable. And they followed of what McGruff the Crime Dog taught them. Or here's another example. Who remembers Popeye the Sailor? You know, he's a sailor and he would get into fights with people. Well, Popeye's character was always, he doesn't go around trying to pick a fight, but he was a defender. He would only pick a fight to defend himself against bullies like Bluto. And you know what? That's something to be admirable for, but that's not the only thing. Popeye is also known for eating his spinach. And during the 30s all the way to the 50s, it was said that spinach was the third most eaten food, right behind turkey and ice cream. So there was a lot of kids who thought to themselves, I want to be as strong as Popeye, so I'm going to eat my greens, I'm going to eat my spinach. So you know what? That's a positive look. That's a good role model for kids. And yeah, obviously, they can't be as strong as Popeye, but it does leave a really good message. If you eat right and don't pick a fight, but defend yourself against bullies and fight your own battles, then you know what? Popeye is a really good role model. If you can manage to get kids to eat their greens and defend themselves. You don't see many cartoons like that these days. You know, to stand up to bullies and fight back. Like, where's the positive adults like Popeye? So again, we need more positive adult role models for kids, for them to say, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be just like so-and-so, or I want to eat spinach just like Popeye. And listen, I can understand this because when I was watching Naruto back in the day, and whenever Naruto would go to his ramen spot to eat ramen, I always used to think they were noodles. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to try some noodles. And yeah, I know ramen and noodles are completely different, but I didn't know that at the time. And now I like noodles. So yeah, kids are impressionable. And that's why we need more positive adult role models. on TV. Maybe like a proper doctor character, or a fireman like Fireman Sam, or a builder like Bob the Builder, that does all these professions. We need characters like that back on TV that'll inspire kids to say, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be a fireman, just like Fireman Sam. And that's all I was trying to say. I wasn't trying to bash kids and teenagers in media, but I just wanted to point out that we just need more positive adult characters that will say, I want to be just like this character when I grow up. So yeah, there you go. So what do you guys think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Is there something you want to add? Who was your positive adult role model when you was growing up? Please let me know in the comment section below, and let's get the discussion going. I'm Freaky. Peace out. And please don't forget to check out my other social medias. Please go and check out my alternative video platforms, Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Twitch, and please come and hang out on my Discord server. We can play games, have a movie night or a series night, or you can watch me play a few games. And if you guys have any suggestions of any videos you want me to react to, or any video ideas in general, you can tell me on my Discord. I'm also on Twitter, Gab, Getter, and Parler. I'm on Locals, Tumblr, Minds, and if you guys want to support me, please go and check out my Subscribestar. It's like Patreon, but better. All these things are in the description box below, so please go and check them out and subscribe to them. I'm Geek Freak. Peace out.